New Mexico Crime Files, a deep dive into the archives, shocking and notorious cases, the arrests and what led to them, and what happened to the suspect. Here are your hosts, Dean Staley and Jessica Garate. New Mexico Crime Files is sponsored by Medrano Struck Law Firm.
Welcome to another episode of New Mexico Crime Files. I'm KRQE News' Dean Staley.
And I'm Jessica Garate, and always a pleasure being here, where we discuss and take a look at some of the high-profile crimes that have made headlines in New Mexico and sometimes in the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. And this crime that we're going to take a look at first here on this episode has to do with a high school student who was having trouble, a special education student, and because the people immediately involved in handling the student couldn't handle them, they called in a resource officer who happened to be, I think, a deputy as well from Arriba County.
And this deputy, when he comes in, he tries to talk to the student. The student is mouthing off towards him. You can tell that angers the deputy, who then tries to restrain him.
Yeah, and he does so in a way, and this is just, you and I both know this, there's every now and then there's just that video, the minute you see that you think, oh my God, a jury is going to have a field day with this video, a prosecutor is going to have a field day, an attorney that's suing over this will have a field day. There's a really bad look to a school resource officer either putting cuffs on a student, which in this case wasn't the problem, or tasing a student. Yes. And that was the problem in this case. And I should say that the deputy in this case, who was acting as a school resource officer, or was sort of put in that role, really did seem sort of angry and a little bit aggressive in the beginning of this.
And I think throughout the story, we learned as the story unfolded that this kid had been causing some problems. They knew him very well. Mm-hmm. He's mouthing off to the deputy, who then, you can just see, gets him heated as well. This was video. We have the full video of it. It was video that was made national headlines. I remember seeing it on the CBS Morning Show because it was just tough video to watch. Yeah,
it really is punishing to watch. As I said, the deputy shows up. He seems a little aggressive. You also have to understand that in this case, I feel like the deputy, if you're paying close attention to the video, and we've watched the raw of this video, you really get the sense that he's there to show the teachers too, I can handle this. I know you guys are sort of beyond your limit now. I've got this. And he's sort of asserting himself in that way.
And there's really, to use a taser on a student, it's so unheard of. Even when you're stuck in these situations for these on-campus officers and deputies, I think we've had like 2 high-profile cases that did not end well for the person tasing the student.
Yeah. And we happen to have the video here in this story, so you can judge, in this case, for yourself.
Now, this is from Arriba County Sheriff's Department and Espanola Public Schools, under fire for this video of a tasing of a student. This happened back in May of 2019, and the deputies claimed that the student was just resisting him. Let's go and take a look at the video.
This is lapel video from Arriba County Sheriff's Deputy Jeremy Barnes. He just arrived at the Española Valley Administrative Offices after a complaint about a 15-year-old special education student back in May.
Oh, he's refusing? That's fine. I'll put his little in handcuffs and take him to Santa Fe.
The teen's lawyer says the school claims the teen was seen allegedly passing something to another student. Others in the video tell the deputy the teen did more than that.
Slammed you with the backpack.
But what happened soon after is hard to watch.
Stand up so I can. Turn around. You want to be cooperative or uncooperative?
What do you think I'm doing?
Fantastic. Turn around.
Turn around.
I'm going to tase you.
Tase.
Oh! Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
In the video, the teen was heard calling the deputy a derogatory name just before he was slammed onto the desk. The teen's lawyer says the deputy hit the student on the left side of his chest, something the taser's manufacturer warns against for fear of stimulating cardiac arrest.
Turn!
The lawyer says the deputy triggered the taser a couple of times.
Comply right now. Stop resisting. That's it. Okay.
The teen's lawyer says the deputy's claims of the student resisting is not true, and he could have handled the situation differently.
It's pain compliance. It's not going to kill you.
The teen's injuries are unclear, but the lawyer says he's terrified.
Get her now. I want my mom now. I want her now. No, I What in here?
Rachel Knapp, KRQE News 13.
Now, some problems do arise over this deputy because this was not the first time that he'd been criticized for using his taser. So there's some background of him handling issues like this.
Right, and he does get charged. He does get charged in this case for using excessive force on this 15-year-old, and the case does go to trial. So this becomes a criminal event, which, when you think about it, just 15, 20 years ago, you rarely heard about an officer being charged for anything remotely like this. But in this case, they looked at him and they said, well, you overreacted, and we think you harmed this person, so they charged him.
So then he goes to court.
Yep.
And he speaks on his behalf, and he admits, hey, I made a mistake.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and watch that.
Today in district court, Jeremy Barnes was facing up to 18 months for tasing a special needs student at Española Valley High School back in May of 2019.
I'm gonna tase you.
Tase.
Oh, get on the ground.
But before his sentencing, Barnes' attorney pleaded with the court, saying the deputy who was working as a school resource officer never intended for things to escalate the way they did.
But the underlying problem here is you put an officer who's not trained, not certified, in a situation with children, in a situation of potential violence, and things are always going to go wrong.
Prosecutors argued what happened is clear-cut. Barnes used excessive force on a 15-year-old at school, and his sentence should reflect that.
Of that position of trust and expectations that we all have, that law enforcement officers will do the right thing rather than what the defendant did that day, which was the wrong thing, the criminal thing, the thing that hurts 15-year-old children in a place of learning.
But before receiving his sentence, Barnes begged for a second chance.
Failed my oath of office as a law enforcement officer. But if given the opportunity, because of what happened, I'd like the opportunity to continue to improve my life in a different direction.
Before handing down Barnes' sentence, District Court Judge Jason Lydiard has some words for the former deputy.
The role of school security officers is not to treat the children of our community like violent adult criminals on the street. But that is exactly what you did in this situation.
Then cut him a break, sentencing him to 30 days in jail. He faced up to a year and a half. George Gonzalez, KRQE News 13.
So there you saw the deputy taking responsibility, saying, in hindsight, I overreacted. Please give me a second chance. And his attorney making the point, which I thought was interesting, that he was acting as a school resource officer, but he really hadn't been trained in that realm, that he was really just a deputy showing up at a high school.
He was sentenced to a month in jail, so he did have to pay for it. He was given an order from completing a satisfactory probation in July of 2024. The teen's family sued over this incident, and they got a whopping $1.3 million in this case.
A lesson for everybody, I think, for the administrators, for the deputy, and it was really interesting to see that some of the things that go on in high schools these days. Pretty shocking.
Yes.
Yep.
19-year-old Abram Martinez went before a judge today to learn his fate after pleading guilty to the first-degree murder of Isaiah Herrera in February 2021.
Under the terms of your agreement, the court imposes a sentence of 15 years.
Herrera's aunt addressed the court at sentencing.
On February 4th, this was the worst day of my life. I not only got the call that my nephew was missing, but hours later, I had to identify his lifeless body in a body bag.
Police found messages between Herrera and Martinez setting up a pot deal. Herrera was later found shot to death along a road in Nambe. Surveillance video captured a car at the crime scene, later connected to Martinez's mother. Police say his mother put a GPS tracker on the car to keep tabs on her then 17-year-old son, who was on juvenile probation. This evidence helped tie Martinez to the murder, but his defense attorney argued in court Martinez wasn't the shooter.
One of the co-defendants told us in a pretrial interview just months ago that it was, in fact, not Mr. Martinez who shot and killed Isaiah Herrera, but his co-defendant.
And prosecutors in the case say Martinez was the 15-year-old with behavioral issues tased by a deputy at Española Valley High School in 2019. In a settlement, Arriba County and Espanola Public Schools agreed to pay the family about $1.3 million. Martinez was set to receive $375,000 of it when he turns 21, but his 15-year sentence is going to put that on hold.
I appreciate the justice system. I mean, we have a justice system that held accountable the man who had hurt Abram, and now Abram has been held accountable.
Ariana Kraft, KRQE News 13.
All right, this next crime that we'll take a look at when we come back involves a state police officer and a suspected drunk driver and someone who blows a ridiculous number on the breathalyzer. That number is 4.0. That's when we come back.
New Mexico Crime Files is sponsored by Medrano Struck Law Firm, New Mexico's trusted personal injury attorneys with nearly 40 years of combined experience, fighting for the justice and compensation you deserve. Call 505-217-2200 or visit MedranoStruckLaw.com today. Let's get back to New Mexico Crime Files.
Welcome back, everyone. This next case, it just has you scratching your head. How is this guy behind the wheel? Because he was so drunk. Like, most of us can't even imagine how you can get to that place and still be functioning or still be alive.
Yeah, this involved a state police officer trying to pull someone over. There's a chase on the interstate, and this person ultimately blows, get this, 4.0. And 4.0, in my own experience, in being a news reporter for a long time, usually you're talking about death at that point. I mean, you really are getting into sort of, alcohol poisoning where people don't come back from that, whether it's a hazing incident, those kinds of things. So this person is really drunk.
And it's just astonishing that he's behind the wheel and doesn't hurt more people.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like at that point, the presumed legal limit is 0.08, and we're at a 0.4, just absolutely plastered. And even more frightening, before police could arrest him, he takes off in his truck.
Yeah.
That drunk takes off in his truck on a chase, leading them on a chase. And this is on I-40, a busy stretch of I-40.
Yeah. Remarkable that no one was injured in that chase, especially for someone that intoxicated.
So Edward Yazzie, he is no stranger to cops. Let's go and take a look at that video.
Yep.
A drunk buster's tip led state police to 42-year-old Edward Yazzie Monday night. He was slumped over in the driver's seat of his pickup just outside of Grants.
An ID. Yeah.
Yazzie only had an Arizona ID card. Police quickly found out he was wanted in the Grand Canyon state for DWI. All of a sudden, he takes off. Yazzie darts onto I-40 and then pulls off into a casino parking lot 10 miles later, where he weaved through the parking lot, then goes off-roading, where he finally stops.
Get out of the vehicle. Put your hands behind your back.
Once in cuffs, officers make a big find.
2 bottles. Vodka. Beer.
5 open vodka bottles. 4 of them were completely empty. The 5th one was 3/4 full, and 1 single can of natural light beer.
You can hear Yazzie in the back seat of the patrol car.
I need treatment so bad. So bad. Nobody sees.
Back at the station,
He blew a .40 and subsequently a .38. That's extremely high for the way he was driving, for his mannerisms, his 5th DWI offense. He should not have been driving in the first place.
So there you see some terrifying moments in terms of someone really drunk driving on the interstate. So lucky that no one was injured in this case and that they were able to get this person into custody without anyone getting hurt or killed.
Again, a 0.4 blood alcohol level is 5 times the legal limit for driving. Most people who are that drunk would be passed out. They wouldn't be able to walk. At the time, the state police spokesman said, as far as he could recall, the highest blood alcohol level they had ever seen in a driver was 0.42.
Yes, and in looking at the court case afterwards, let's just admit this right now, Jess, some of this is a mess in terms of trying to sort out the court records. And we know this in New Mexico. Sometimes this happens, and it also happens when we have cases outside New Mexico where there's more DWIs that someone was involved in outside of our state. So the notes that we have, Yazzie tried to get out of cuffs in the patrol car. We should just say that. Yeah. He was indicted in May of 2010, pleaded guilty to a 4th DWI. And this sounds like much later, like 2021, pleading guilty to a 4th DWI right around 2021, 2020. And he was sentenced to 3.5 years.
And he had 3 times where motions were filed to revoke probation because he just couldn't follow the rules. This guy has just been a long-time problem for New Mexico and on New Mexico roads. He had an unsatisfactory dismissal from probation back in 2018. And again, he's been arrested another time and sentenced to 2 years for a 5th guilty offense for drunk driving. He just keeps going on and on.
Yeah.
He's got a lengthy drunk driving history.
And as a reporter, I'm always conflicted about people like this because you think, wow, this person really has a disease. This person can't beat it. With someone who's gets caught drunk driving more than 5 or 6 times, you just think, wow. And how many times were they driving drunk and putting people at risk and they didn't get caught, right? So you get angry and frustrated that people like this are on the road, but you also have to be somewhat sympathetic or empathetic. You think, wow, this person really can't solve this problem. They really are just a prisoner of this alcoholism, of this disease they're experiencing. So it's a tough one.
Yeah.
But how do we get these people off the streets and keep everyone safe, right? And keep them in treatment or keep them at least from behind the wheel.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and we still haven't solved it. Obviously, this guy's still out.
Yeah, we'll let you know when we solve the DWI. We'll keep it right here on New Mexico Crime Files, and when we solve DWI, we'll send you an alert.
Yeah.
How about that?
This next story, Dean, I love this next story. It's the most beautiful ring that Santa Fe police have. They had it turned in. It's gorgeous. And they're trying to get it to the rightful owner. It's this beautiful engagement ring, massive diamond. And so they put it out there to try to find the rightful owner. And it's interesting how they finally ditched. A lot of people came forward thinking it was there, or trying to convince cops it was theirs. It wasn't. How they finally got it to the rightful owner when we come back. Dean, this last case, it's not a criminal case, but it was a case that was solved, and it showed some cool police work in trying to figure out who owned this beautiful diamond engagement ring.
A ring worth $30,000. You're talking about Santa Fe police who were getting ready to auction it, right?
Yes.
Because it was in their possession and they can't find the owner, so they think, well, by rule, we're just going to have to auction this off.
Here's Crystal Gutierrez from a story back in 2011 showing how police were able to get that ring back to the rightful owner.
Lieutenant Carlos, Santa Fe Police.
Lieutenant Luis Carlos says for 2 years, not one single call has come in about this 3-carat stunner, so the diamond ring sat in police evidence. Last month, police decided they would auction it off, but before they did, they let the public have one more look. Soon after, the phone calls started pouring in. 25 people called or stopped by claiming the ring was theirs. Detectives sat and listened to every single story.
We had stories from that it was burglarized. We had stories that it was taken from them.
One after another, possible owners were eliminated because they didn't have the proof it was theirs. Police thought for sure this $30,000 rock was headed for the auction block until...
First words out of her mouth was that this is my ring.
The woman told Carlos the ring was an engagement ring that she bought in her name. Her fiancé was supposed to make payments for it, but shortly after it disappeared, so did he. She told police she was stuck with a bill. That bill is what helped prove her case.
She was able to produce documentation that the ring does belong to her.
The woman emailed Carlos the original receipt dated in 1997 with her name on it. It had a picture, description, and details about the used ring's flaws.
Once we were able to compare those flaws of the ring, we were satisfied that this is her ring.
If that picture wasn't enough, the woman dug up even more.
And also, she produced some pictures of herself wearing the ring.
Carlos says it was a perfect match.
What she said that, you know, she actually found a long-lost love.
First of all, just shame on all of you people.
Yeah, I'm like, I wonder, who are these 25 people?
Shame
Like,
on all of you 25 people who lost your $30,000 ring that did not exist. So it's so nice to have a sort of crime story where you can be, you know, kind of smile about it. But 25 people came forward and said, "Oh, that's absolutely my ring," and good for the Santa Fe police officers and Luis Carlos, who we know is a good guy, stepping in and saying, "We're going to make sure that we don't just give this out to somebody. We're going to be really diligent about making sure whoever claims this is the rightful owner."
Absolutely. I'm like, how, the bravery of these people to walk into that police department and say, "Hey, I lost this," and, you know, made up some bogus story and try to claim that beautiful diamond.
And the story works out for the owner.
Yeah.
This is crazy that she had that kind of story that is provable, right?
Yeah, and then she had pictures of it. She was able to show, and poor thing, she gets stuck with this ring. The ring gets lost. This is back from 1997, and they didn't find it. You know, she didn't find it and reconnect and find it again until 2011. So,
right, and the story, as we understand it, just so we're clear, is she didn't file a police report because she wasn't sure that she maybe had lost it or it was stolen, and it's still not clear whether maybe it was her fiance who took the ring and somehow it ended up, you know, back in police's hand, but she had no idea how it got away from her, right?
Right. And good for her, because he took off, he left her with the bill, so she got that ring back.
Yeah, and the ring was gone, so she had to keep paying on it. It wasn't like she could turn the ring back into the jeweler and say, "Hey, I got stood up, here's the ring back," and get off the hook. She had to pay for the... So this, you know, we close the circle a little bit and we have some justice in terms of making all the payments on a ring that you don't have, and then suddenly it shows up. It's a great part of the story.
Yes, it is. It really is. And these are fun stories to be able to report on. And it just shows some police work and just a cool story to talk about.
It's nice when the system works.
Yes.
Right? Because they could have auctioned it off and maybe she would never heard about it. And it gets auctioned off and ends up in someone else's hand and she's just out all that money.
Yeah.
So good stuff.
Good for her.
All right, well, keep it here on New Mexico Crime Files. We will be covering stories like these and very different stories, all sorts of different crime stories in the days ahead.
Yes, thank you for joining us today.